Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Gada Case of Wanderlust podcast. I'm your host, Lydia, and today I'm with seasoned Nepal trekking specialist, Sonja, who was born and raised in the Netherlands. Sonja has been to Nepal over a dozen times and now partners with a Sherpa Trekking company in Nepal that prioritizes responsible tourism. So, thank you so much for taking your time out of your Nepal adventure, Sonja.
Yeah, you're welcome. Happy to join. Thank you for inviting me.
So, my first question is what sparked your wanderlust? What brought you to Nepal?
Definitely adventure. And I love mountains. So I like hiking in the mountains. In Netherlands, we don't have mountains, but the Alps in Switzerland and Austria are not that far traveling. It's a full day traveling, and then you're in the Alps. And yeah, the Himalayas, they sound mystical, so I had to see them once. And when I was there, it was not only the mountains, but also the people and the culture that really sparked my interest to come back again and again.
Mm. So, for your first trip to Nepal, like you said, very different from the Netherlands, can you recall any cultural shocks or maybe unexpected things about the country?
Yeah, if you arrive in Nepal, you arrive in Kathmandu, a very bustling and chaotic and busy city. Uh, and you don't understand the traffic if you are there, especially first time. I call it organized chaos. Uh, and that was it made a real big impression on me. And also, you look at the poles beside the road, and it's full of wires, and you don't understand that there's no shortcuts every day in every house, but it works apparently for them.
Okay.
That was my first impression. Yeah.
Okay. And what is it about Nepal then that captured your heart that made you want to return again and again?
Um, People, they're very friendly, open, heartily welcome. Um, the culture, you have, of course, a lot of Hinduism culture, Buddhist culture, with their temples and stupas and monasteries. Um, the food, I really like the food. And yeah, that you can actually get quite easily into the mountains and totally come to rest and to Zen and almost become one with nature there. That makes me come back once again and again and again. Yeah.
Hmm. And would you say that the infrastructure is like pretty good for a country like Nepal compared to, say, Europe? Like, is there easy public transport to get to the mountains versus renting a car?
Renting a car is not an option.
Okay.
I would not recommend it to everyone, and unless you have a death wish. But it, it's not safe to drive yourself. I wouldn't recommend it. To some popular destinations like the Annapurna Circuit, there are tourist buses, and they are quite good. Also from Kathmandu to Pokhara, you have a tourist bus, and also to a few other tourist destinations. The public bus, it's can stop, especially in rural areas, at every house, and uh, then it can take many hours. They are uncomfortable. The chairs, you have hardly any space for your legs. So for fun, just to uh, experience it once, you can do it for like 1 or maximum 2 hours. But I would not recommend it for regular transport. So, like I said, to most trekking, you can get with a tourist bus, and otherwise, you have to hire the private transport, a private car
Okay.
with a driver.
Gotcha. And would you say Nepal is a pretty affordable place to travel to?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, you can make it, of course, as expensive as you like. Um, but yeah, you can stay in Kathmandu for maybe $20-25 per night already, or maybe even lower. Um, and the food, especially mountains, it's not that expensive compared to other destinations. I must say that the higher you get, and there is no road to a tea house, of course, everything has to be brought by people or by donkey or even by yak. Um, and then the price goes up. You're talking about, well, $10 for a room. And a tea house room is pretty basic. So you have a bed, a thin mattress, there's no heating there. There's often two beds in one room. And there's a dining hall for everyone. And often there's a stove, a wood stove. And they put wood in it, or at high altitude yak dung that burns as well to keep you warm after the sun has set. And meals are about $5 and yeah,
Wow.
$12.
So pretty affordable, definitely. And
Yeah.
as far as the food, what's some of your favorite dishes to order?
Um, well, the most popular dish for Nepali is called dal bhat. And dal is a soup from lentil, and bhat is rice, so rice with lentil, and they often offer it with some vegetables or a vegetable curry with it, some pickles, sometimes papadum. It depends a bit where you are and what you have in the house, what they can offer. And I really liked it. There's a saying here for trekkers, Dalbot power 24 hours, so it keeps you going on the trails. And I also like a chicken curry, locally made. And my favorite is not on any map or menu you can see. It's a dal made from local nettles, and you eat it with a corn mash. And it's a very, very basic food, but if it's made correctly, it's so incredibly tasty. And that's my favorite one, actually. Yeah.
I've never heard of that. There's a
No.
few Nepali restaurants where I come from, Chicago, and I absolutely love the momo dumplings. Those, I mean, any
Oh
kind of
yeah, they're
dumplings I love.
great. Yeah. Yeah, I forgot to mention them. Yeah, momos are fantastic. Often filled with chicken meat or buffalo meat, because they have no beef meat here because of it's not allowed to kill cow or bull, because they're sacred animal for the Hindus. Um, and also the vegetable momos are really nice. But yeah, you're right. They're really tasty. They're yummy. Yeah.
And are those considered street food sort of like things in Nepal, or do you go to a restaurant typically to eat?
Momo, it's yeah, you can consider it street food, but they they serve it often, even if it's a little restaurant, like as big as a small kitchen. It's sometimes that's already a restaurant, a local restaurant. Only if you go there, you have to be cautious and careful with hygiene. So I would be a bit hesitant to go in those local places alone. But my friend, who's Sherpa, then sometimes if he doesn't know the place, he just walks into the kitchen and then he lets me know if it's safe to eat, yes or no. Because obviously food poisoning is, yeah, it's around the corner in those local places.
And it is definitely not a fun experience. Have you ever gotten food
No.
poisoning, Sonia?
Uh, Not as bad, but yeah, sometimes I did have some trouble with food. Yeah, yeah. And for me, it only lasted 1 or 2 days. But if you really have bad food poisoning, it can take up a week or even longer, or you have to go to a health post. Or, yeah, there are quite some dramatic stories about it.
It's definitely not something to mess around with. And
No.
I know from experience when I was in Mexico as a street food lover, I'm always wanting to try like the super local dishes, but I learned the hard way that you gotta be a little bit more cautious about where exactly you eat at, because it could really
Yeah.
ruin your entire trip.
Yeah, it can definitely ruin your trip. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Yeah. So I'm also very cautious about it. And again, I would not easily go into those local places alone. Then I would play it safe, and go to more regular tourist restaurants for the
Right.
food. During trek in the tea houses, it's usually safe.
Okay.
Then you can order easily what you like.
Okay, perfect.
It's
That's
mainly in those street food places in the cities like Kathmandu and Pokhara that I'm a bit hesitant about. Yeah.
That's good to know. Do you have any other advice for travelers to Nepal, like things you wish you knew beforehand? Maybe some cultural norms they should be aware of, even like best places to visit you could recommend?
Yeah, like I said, everyone arrives in Kathmandu, and it's full of cultural places to visit, and actually too much places to visit. But some famous places are a place called Swayambunat. It's a Buddhist stupa on a hill, but it's also a Hindu site. So and there are also some Hindu temples. So it's combined Buddhism, Hinduism on that same hill place in the middle of Kathmandu. Yeah, and if you're lucky and the weather is okay, then you have to climb up some stairs, but then you have a great view of the Kathmandu Valley and maybe see some mountains, Langtang Mountains in the back. So that's a real cool place to visit. Uh, there's another place that's very interesting. It's called Pashupatinath. It's also a big Hindu site, but also it's next to a river where they burn the bodies in open air, dead bodies. It sounds a bit freaky to go there, but yeah, it's part of their culture. So for them, it's totally normal. We have Bodhanath Stupa. That is a really big stupa, also in the middle of Kathmandu, and it's a great place to walk around there. Uh, it feels really nice, and yeah, you can feel the cultural Buddhist spirit up there. Um, Other places are it's called Durbar Square, and that is uh, full of Hindu temples from different gods, because Hindus have a lot of gods. It's interesting to visit, and there are some next cities, cultural cities next to Kathmandu. You have Patan, which also has a Durbar Square, and you have Bhaktapur, which also has a big Bhaktapur Durbar Square. And the difference between Bhaktapur and Kathmandu and Patan is that Bhaktapur still has that village vibe in it. So you can see farmers or tractors driving through the city. So that gives a different vibe. So, and if you visited all those places, then you're quite full of all cultural impressions. But those are really interesting places to visit.
Okay, thank you so much for sharing. Um, and then once you've done kind of the more cultural things in the city, you had mentioned before we started recording that Nepal is famous for its hiking trails, and you have recently finished one of the like most incredible trails, I think, like that are out there. You said it took you almost half a year, which is crazy, and it is the Great Himalaya Trail. So, can you talk about hiking in Nepal? Like, is it something you recommend for first time visitors, or do you have to be a bit more experienced?
Yeah, the Great Himalaya Trail, it travels. through the Himalaya from the east to the west or the west to the east, depending on where you start. And then you visit all regions, like famous regions like the Everest region and the Annapurna region, but also other regions. You just cross through them. And it was an inner call to do that trail. But yeah, definitely trekking. It's really nice to get into the mountains. Um, People often think that you have to go high altitude to see the mountains, but it's not. Uh, I'm now in Pokhara, and I've been here several times. And you have here around here the Annapurna foothills, and even from those foothills you can already see the entire Annapurna mountain range and sometimes beyond. And then you're at an altitude of uh, between 2,000 and 3,000 meter already. And for Nepal, it's not that high. So yeah, definitely trekking is a great way to explore the country, nature, explore the mountains, explore rural life. You see people working on their terraces or on their houses. Or yeah, it's really fun to do. And you can trek for 2 days or 2 weeks or 2 months or 6 months.
And then, as far as like responsible tourism practices that you prioritize with this company you work for, do you have any tips you could share with travelers who come to Nepal?
Yeah, I would say hire a guide. They made it mandatory last year since April 1st, but it's not very regulated, so you can still quite easily trek without a guide. But it adds so much more to the experience. Monasteries that are closed, they will open up. They can tell you which mountain you're looking at. They make sure you eat safe and hygienic food. And they tell you a lot about culture, or you get invited in people's homes. So that's what I really recommend. And then this way, you're also helping the local economy directly just by hiring a guide and, if you like, also a porter to carry your luggage. Then there are a few treks that are community based. There's one in the lower Everest region. It's called Peak at Peak Trek. And there you visit some homestays during this trek. I do not advise to do this trek alone because it's hardly visited by tourists, so it's not always easy to find the trail. And in the Annapurna region, you have a trek called Copra Ridge Trek, also community-based. And from the ridge, you can see 360 the mountains, Annapurna mountains, but also beyond. And the tea houses up there is not run by people personally, but it's run by the community. So all the income goes to the entire community. And those are tracks that I really would recommend, and that is, for me, perfect responsible tourism.
Yeah, like supporting locals is one of the most important ways. So thank you for sharing that. Um, and for all those that are listening who feel like they're getting thrown a lot of names, I believe you have these on your thatch guides. Is that right, Sonia?
Yeah, I'm still writing test guides. Um, I'm sorry, but my computer crashed, so I'm a little bit behind. But yeah, definitely some test guides will be added there. And otherwise, people can connect to my friend's agencies. Can I give his name?
Yes, of course.
It's called Sherpa Heritage Trails, and you can contact him. Also will give you good advice if you tell him your wishes and what your abilities are for a nice and great trekking or travel experience in Nepal.
Okay, perfect. I'll make sure to put that in the show notes. And then just some final wrap up questions. What would be your dream destination to go to next, Sonia?
Yeah, I'm thinking of Mera Peak in Nepal.
Ooh, okay. And how long would this hike be?
This would be about 3 weeks, and then you go to one of the highest trekking peaks. So it's 6,400 something meters, and that is something that's still on my wish list to go there.
Wow, okay. And
You would
then
not think there would be anything left after the Great Himalaya Trail, but there is.
I'm sure the country offers a plentitude of good hiking trails. And then
Yeah.
what would be a memorable meal you've had?
That would be the nettle dal we mentioned. Yeah. The first time I had it, I was blown away by the good taste of it, because the nettles here taste different than nettles in my country, and they just have a good taste. And in my country, I don't like them, but in this country, they were really tasteful. So that was a really memorable meal for me. If you would say what is a memorable meal what you can easily buy in Kathmandu or Pokhara, then what you mentioned about momos, definitely a good one. Yeah, really
Okay,
tasty.
okay. And then my last question is what is a special destination or place in your heart?
Do you mean in Nepal or outside Nepal?
It could be a specific place in Nepal, somewhere outside of Nepal. You could choose.
Ooh. That will be a place called Mude. It's a local place in Lower Everest region. And Gumba Sherpa, who is owner of Sherpa Heritage Trails, when I visited him for the second time, he took me to his place where he was born, and that was that place. And that was the first time I was invited so many times with family homes and indoor monasteries. And I think that made me come back again and again, because that was the first time I really experienced Nepal from the heart. And that, yeah, that
That's
made it all good.
beautiful.
Yeah, it's
Okay,
beautiful.
amazing. Well, thank you so much again for your time, Sonia. I really enjoyed picking your brain about Nepal, somewhere that is still very like lesser known, less traveled. So, yeah, I hope to visit one day, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your travel there.
Yeah, thank you. I'm at the moment in Pokhara. So it's a city next to a lake. It's got a chill vibe and relaxing, and it's nice to be here. And thank you for inviting me for your podcast. It was really nice to do.
Thank you so much for listening to the Gotta Case Wanderlust podcast. Again, my name is Lydia, and you can find me on social media in the About section of this podcast. Please rate and review if you found value or insight from this, and I hope to see you in the next episode.